Okay, welcome everybody to Parshat Vayetzei 5782. This class is sponsored by Chaya and Ruby Goodwin in honor of the Refuah Shalema for Fega Malka Bat Gitel Chana, along with all Choli Yisrael. It should have Refuah Shalema Bekrova soon and complete. And let's learn in their merit, and in that zchut, we should all see only good things and hear only good news. All right, the parsha, in a nutshell, Yaakov has been sent by his parents to go find a wife. He leaves Beersheba. The Gemara in Megillah and the Midrashim tell us that he spent some time also learning before the beginning of this parsha. So there's like an in-between stage of 14 years. Either way, in this parsha, the very beginning, he goes to sleep. He sees the vision of the ladder and the angels going up and down the ladder. He wakes up from this dream and he goes immediately to Lavan's house, where he meets Rahel, wants to marry Rahel. Lavan tricks him, and he marries Leah first and Rahel later. The famous story that everybody knows of how Lavan switched the girls in the night, and this is one of the reasons for the custom that we have in the Jewish wedding to have a bedekin, to uncover the veil of the groom uncovers the veil of the kala, of the bride, to make sure that it is the right girl. So Leah has a number of children. These are going to be the core of the Shvatim, the 12 tribes of Israel. Almost all of them are born in the parsha here, and all but Binyamin, who's going to be born in next week's parsha. So eventually the girls themselves, Leah and Rachel's not able to have children for a long time. She gives her handmaid to Yaakov as a wife, and she has children. And then Leah stops having children. She does the same thing with her handmaid, and then also has children, and therefore they are able to build up the house of Yaakov with 11 of the 12 Shvatim, and of course Dinah. Towards the end of the parsha, Yaakov wants to leave Lavan's house. Lavan has a deal with him. I'm not going to get into the details of the deal. We talked about that last year when we talked about the parsha. And then what happened was Yaakov eventually leaves, and Lavan pursues him, and they make an agreement, and then they part ways, and then that's pretty much the parsha in a nutshell. So if there's no questions about that, and there shouldn't be, let's head right into what we were planning to do with the psukim themselves. So right after the dream that Yaakov has of the angels going up and down the ladder, Yaakov, it says, this is chapter 28, verses 20 to 22, 28, 20 to 28, 22. Chaf chet, chaf to chaf bet. So Vidar Yaakov neder. Yaakov makes a neder. Yaakov makes a vow. Lemor, and this vow he states, Im Elokim imadi, if Hashem is going to be with me, ushmarani b'derech, and he will guard me on the way. Hazeh, asher anochi holech, and the way that I'm going, but not only lechem lechol, and gives me food to eat. Lechem is literally bread, but bread is the prime food. So he's basically saying, if I have food to eat, ubeged lilbosh, and clothes to wear, v'shavti b'shalom el beit avi, and I am brought in peace to my father's house. V'haya Hashem li le'elokim, and then Hashem will be for me a God. V'evan hazot, and this stone he made basically put together an altar. It says v'evan hazot asher samti matzeva yeh beit elokim. This will be the house of Hashem. Kol asher titin li aser esrani loch. Asranu loch. So anything that I make, I'm going to give ma'aser from. I'm going to give 10% to Hashem. So this is the vow that Yaakov makes. Now, what's interesting is, the Kli Yakar points out, what's interesting is, Yaakov is making a vow here. Seems like it's a legitimate vow. The only problem is, very much recently, right before that, it is said that Hashem promised that he's going to be with him and he's going to guard him. So Hashem tells Yaakov, I am going to be Anochi Imach, I'm going to be with you, Ushmarticha, and I'm going to guard you. B'chol asher telech, everywhere that you go. That was the promise Hashem made. And then, after that, following that, Yaakov makes a vow that if you guard me, I'll do this and that and the other thing. I'll do all these mitzvot. So what's the point of making a vow for something that Hashem already said he was going to do? So the Kli Yakar begins, Chalila Lomar, Chalila, God forbid you should say, Shaya Yaakov Misupak Behavtachat Hashem Yitbarach. God forbid we should have any concern that Yaakov at all doubted what Hashem said he was going to do. Ki kvar amar lo ha'elokim hinei anochi imach. Hashem already told him, I'm going to be with you. I'm going to guard you wherever you go. So why is he making a vow if God already told him he's going to protect him? Elabir ha'inyan hu. The explanation for this is that Shaya Yaakov lo bikesh klal al shmirat haguf. He's not asking about Hashem protecting his body. Shekvar huvtach bo. Hashem already promised he would guard him, he would protect him. Elabikesh achshav. What's he asking for? Al shmirat hanefesh min hachet. He's asking Hashem to protect his soul from sin. In other words, Hashem promised him a lot of promises, but all of those promises are physical promises in this world. And what Yaakov is concerned with is, but am I going to be a good person? In other words, we ask every morning when we wake up, one of the first brachot, and after the 18 brachot that we say of Birkat HaShachar, we ask that Hashem keeps the Al Tashleit Banu Yetzer Hara, that Hashem help us so that the Yetzer Hara does not rule over us. What are we asking for? Don't we have free will? Hashem's not going to control our free will. What are we asking for? So what we're asking for is the same thing that Yaakov is asking for. We're asking for fewer opportunities to mess up, right? Yes, I'm human. I make mistakes, and I will try to not make mistakes. That's on me. That's the free will part of life. But from Hashem's perspective, from Hashem's side, what we're asking is for fewer possibilities of messing up. It's very easy to do, especially here's Yaakov. He's all alone. We don't know what kind of situations he's going to be in. He's afraid. He's afraid he's going to mess up. And yes, he's been in yeshiva. Yes, he's learned. Yes, he grew up in the house of Yitzchak, and he's seen the house of Avraham. But nevertheless, he's a human being, and he's afraid he might not be as perfect as we make him out to be, the ideal man in some ways. As some of you know, the Merkava, we say Hashem's chariot, whatever that means, has on it 4 sides, and on the 4 sides there's an eagle and a lion. What else is there? The Kruvim. One of the Kruvim is there, and on one side is Yaakov himself. And on one side is Yaakov, the ideal, the man, right? The image of a man. What's the image of a man? Yaakov is the image of a man. He's sort of perfection. Now, we spoke about this in quite some detail when we were learning the book Ascent to Harmony, because Yaakov represents that harmony between all sides of the Sfirot, all sides of our emotional balance really comes down to Yaakov. So we all have that, where we can be balanced and have the right amount of everything, and that's when we living our as the popular phrase is nowadays, we're living our best life, right? We're living that happens when we're living in a direction towards harmony. Okay. So the Kli Yakar says more. There are a lot of aspects to this entire phenomenon of this entire event, but we're going to move on to the next chapter, next verse, chapter 29, verse 11. So 29:11, we have the introduction, the meeting of Yaakov and Rahel. And Yaakov was standing there speaking to some shepherds, trying to find out where Lavan's house is. And he was standing next to this well that had this giant stone on it. And why did it have a giant stone? Because these people, it says Rav Hirsch, they didn't trust each other very much. They usually, a public well should have easy access for people, right? It's public, it's for everybody. But they didn't trust each other. They thought that some people would not take their share. And so they had a super heavy one that can only be lifted up if all of them work together to do it. And only then can you, that's how little trust they had for each other. Yaakov was so inspired when he saw Rachel that he just popped off the rock all by himself, like Rashi says, like a cork from a bottle. Easy as that. It just came right out. So immediately he comes to her, the Ishak Yaakov the Rachel. Yaakov kissed Rachel, v'isa et kolo, and he raised his voice, v'yevk, and he cried. So this is an interesting verse. The first half is interesting also. He's kissing somebody who's for all intents and purposes a complete stranger. I mean, she doesn't really know who he is. Again, Rav Hirsch says that he must have seemed to her like a madman coming up to her out of nowhere and kissing her. So you see, she doesn't even really speak until he explains himself. And that's the next verse is he's saying, "Oh, I'm not just a stranger. I am from your brother. I'm from your father's, sister's house, et cetera, et cetera." So, and she doesn't even talk to him about it. As soon as he finishes that introduction, she goes and runs and tells Lavan. Interestingly enough, but anyway. But after he kisses her, he cries. Now, you might say this if this is a movie, made in contemporary movie, he's probably crying from emotion. He's probably crying because he's so in love with her. She's so beautiful, whatever. There's beautiful orchestral music playing in the background. But that's not how we understand things. Based on our current perception, we need to understand things through Chazal's idea. And Rashi says, why is he crying? Not for any of those reasons. Rashi says two reasons. First of all, let's just give over the first reason, even though that's not going to be really the focus here. He realized through Ruach HaKodesh that he realized from Ruach HaKodesh that she would not be buried with him. All right. So in other words, crying has to be something sad. It can't be crying from emotion. There are other words for crying. Bechia or vayev really literally means to burst into tears. It's not just an emotional outpour. It's not just crying from laughter or crying from whatever. It's necessarily sadness. It indicates a sadness. Remember, it's worth reminding everybody. I'm sure you already know this, but if there's something described in the Torah, it's unusual already. What do I mean? There's hardly any conversations in the Torah. We don't hear almost a peep between Abraham and Sarah for the 100-something years that they're married. They don't talk? Of course they talked. But the Torah didn't record it because it doesn't need to be in the Torah. It's not there to teach us a lesson. If it's described in the Torah, it's teaching us a lesson. This crying isn't just to give us some sort of, the author wants us to feel what's going on at the moment. That doesn't happen in the Torah. The Torah doesn't do that. There's no literary license that the Torah is using so much. Okay, it uses poetry every once in a while, but it usually tells you when it does that. But for all intents and purposes, if there's some kind of description going on, there's a reason for it, deeper than, just to put us in the place so we can picture it. All right. So the so davar acher. So Rashi gives a second reason. This is the one I'd like to focus on. Lefi sheba b'yadayim reikaniot. He came to her empty-handed. He's poor. He has nothing. And you're asking yourself, what? Yaakov, come on. You couldn't anticipate that you'd find your bride? You came here for this reason. This is why your parents sent you, is to find a bride. Why did you not bring any money with you? What is going on? But he did bring money. Amar Eliezer Eved Avi Abba Hayu Biyada Nizamim Utzmidim Umigdanot V'ani Ein Biadi Klum. My father's servant Eliezer, when he found my mother, when he found Rivka, he had gold, silver, all kinds of. He even had special foods, desserts, everything. He brought a lot of stuff, right? I have nothing in my hands. Now, why does he have nothing in his hands? So the Gemara and the Midrash tell us, Lefi Sheradaf Eliphaz ben Esav b'mitzvot aviv achorav lahargo v'hisigo. His nephew Eliphaz, the son of Esav, ran after him to kill him, in following his father's instruction to do that. There's a mitzvah, Kibbut Avayim, and Eliphaz, in his mind, was doing the mitzvah of listening to his father to go kill his uncle Yaakov. Okay? Lefi shagada Eliphaz b'cheko shel Yitzchak, but since Eliphaz was raised in the bosom of Yitzchak, in other words, he was taught by his grandfather Yitzchak about how to behave. Mashach Yadav. That wasn't enough. He didn't want to kill him. He was taught by Yitzchak not to kill people, so he's not going to kill Yaakov just because his father told him to. So now he's confused. He's got his father telling him to kill him. He's got his grandfather's Torah lesson of not to kill. So what are you supposed to do? Amar lo. So Yaakov told him, how can I help you fulfill your mitzvah of listening to your father? Amar lo Yaakov told ma shabiyadi. Take what's in my hand. In other words, take all of my money. In other words, rob me. The Gemara says that there's a list of people who are chashuv kamet. They're considered as if they're dead, and somebody who's impoverished, somebody who's dirt poor, is basically as if they're dead. By the way, the Gemara, like I said, has a list of other people who are also chashuv kamet, and in that list is somebody who's mentioned later on in the parsha. Is actually learned out from a verse. She says, Rahel says that if Yaakov can't make her have a child, then she's basically as good as dead. So a woman who wants to have children and cannot, so that's also this terrible feeling that's almost like death. Okay, that's not really the point here either. The point here is there's a long, beautiful essay in Sichot Musar from Rav Chaim Shmulevitz on this topic. It's a very, very long piece. I have the whole thing here. We're obviously not going to go through it all. I have it there in case you want to ever look back at it, just to have it there for reference. But and he goes through other cases in Tanakh. He talks about Shimshon, talks about other people who fit this description. But his question is this: is Eliphaz schizophrenic? Is Eliphaz just very confused? Because here's Eliphaz, and he's listening to his father to do the mitzvah of Kibbut Avayim to kill somebody. There's no mitzvah of Kibbut Avayim to kill somebody. If your father tells you to do something that's wrong, you are obligated to not listen to their father. It's absolutely, it's literally what it says when it says the mitzvah of Kibbut Av Va'em, right? It says it right after the laws of Shabbat, and Rashi tells us what's the connection between Kibbut Av Va'em, right before the laws of right after the laws of Shabbat. Shabbat and Kibbut Av Va'em. Sorry, I'm getting a little confused here. Yeah, fourth and fifth. I know the difference between 4 and 5. All right, so so the fourth mitzvah of is to respect Shabbat. The fifth mitzvah is to respect your parents. And so you're probably wondering to yourself, how is that possible? How can you? Why is this the way that it is? So the answer is the two mitzvot are put together because in case your father tells you to break Shabbat, tells you, hey, kiddo, turn on the lights for me, or cook me up something nice to eat. And it's Shabbat morning. You say, I'm sorry, the Torah says I can't do it. I'll turn on the lights in a few hours. I'll cook you up something to eat tonight, right? So whatever it is, nicht auf Shabbos, correct? So right, so you can't do it. So what's the mitzvah? What's going on? How is Eliphaz so confused? So this essay that he wrote is called Ha'or v'Ha'choshech Sheb Adam, the light and the dark that is in all people. All people have a duality, a mixed emotions about things, an inconsistency, call it. We're not robots. We have emotions about things, and we have different influences in our lives that are telling us sometimes very, very different things. So what's the way to be? How are you supposed to ideally react to things? So it says Rav Shmulevitz, he says, Zulana Dugma Nuspat La Ora Choshech Shemishanshin Arbuvia Benafsha Shel Adam. There's a mixture of light and dark in our very essence. We have both in us. And so we're not expected to be one way all the time and always be on guard and everything else. That we'd be locked in our rooms all the time. We need to live in the world. So Yaakov, we have here, Eliphaz, who we're talking about, is not the only one who's confused. We all have this multiplicity in our lives. We all have different complex emotions, and we have to rein them in and find consistency, find harmony, as we mentioned earlier. So he, like I said, it's a long essay, and I can't possibly do justice in the time that I have left. But what I'd like to just conclude with, at least in this part, is we need to focus on the light side. We have an or, we have a choshech, we have a light and dark. We have the dark side in us. We have the light side in us, and our goal in life is to focus as much as we can to the light side, and to realize that, to think about our influences, think about why you do things. And take any example, even sometimes a mitzvah could be done for the wrong reasons. You're doing it for your self-aggrandizement, or you're doing it because you want to impress somebody, or I think I've told this story before, but I like it, so I'll tell it again. There's the famous story of Rabbi Shlomo Salanter. And I know I told the story, I'm sure of it, but we'll say it again. So the story goes that Rabbi Yisrael Salanter was once in shul, and a collector came and he asked for money, and Rabbi Yisrael Salanter didn't give him, and everybody else did, and people gave him. It was a very important cause. People gave him a lot of money, And then and he was there in town. He was in Vilna for a while, and he was collecting. Rabbi Yisrael Salanta didn't give him the first day, not the second day. He just wouldn't give him. So anyway, eventually this collector went on and went to a different town. And in this other town, it was discovered that he was not really a collector for an organization, not any major cause at all. He was using the money to for himself, right? And so people came up to. By the way, we had a similar incident here in San Diego once. A few years ago, it was a Sunday. I was in shul, and somebody came collecting, and people gave, and two separate people came collecting, and people gave. And then later on in the day, I took my kids to SeaWorld. And who do I see in SeaWorld in line in front of me? These two collectors. So I'm not really sure how desperate their family's plight was, that if they're collecting and using that money for entertainment purposes. I'm assuming they weren't collecting from Shamu. Anyway, whatever the case may be. Anyway, so people came up to Rabbi Yisrael Salanter afterwards, and they said to him, "Why didn't you give? Everybody else was giving." He said, "You know, I didn't give. It's not because I'm a navi. I didn't have any like ruach hakodesh. I didn't know that he was a fraud. Why didn't I give him? Because I wanted to give him. Something inside me snapped, and I wanted to give him more tzedakah than I ever wanted to give somebody else." And I said, if I want to give him tzedakah so badly, there must be some yetzer hara involved. There must be something wrong about why I want to give him. There's something wrong about it, so I'm not going to give him. I'm not going to say anything bad about him. Obviously, it's not his fault. I don't know why I want to give him so badly. So it's because he wanted to give that he didn't give. Because usually, if you're really giving tzedakah, you shouldn't want to do it so much. Yes, you're supposed to want to do mitzvot, but on the other hand, love mitzvah nen in lahem. The mitzvot were not given for hana. We're not given for pleasure. If you're getting that much pleasure from doing a mitzvah, you're probably not doing it right. There's supposed to be a sort of loss. You're supposed to sacrifice something for a mitzvah. It's kind of a sort of a sad way to think about it, because we want to do mitzvot also, but we should do the mitzvot because we want to do it for H-Shem, not for our own pleasure. Actually, it happens to be Daf Yomi is at the end of Rosh Hashanah right now. God willing, this week will be a Siyum Sunday. No. I think Shabbat is a Siyum on Rosh Hashanah. So the very, very last parts of the Masechta is a whole discussion about getting pleasure from mitzvot, and part of the discussion is that indeed the mitzvot are not for our pleasure. We do mitzvot for Hashem's sake, and they should be done lishma, and not for reasons of thank you, and not for reasons of for ourselves. It gets complicated. Obviously, there's some mitzvot we enjoy doing. You might enjoy lighting a Hanukkah candle. Right, it's coming up, right? You have these sentimental feelings. There's warmth, et cetera. But even the candles, you're not supposed to really benefit from. Right? That's one of the reasons you can't benefit from. So you shouldn't benefit from mitzvot. They're not for you. They're for Hashem. And by the way, having those warm feelings is not wrong. You are allowed to have those feelings. Don't stop having those feelings. That's not considered enjoyment from a mitzvah. For those purposes. All right. Anyway, let's go on. Speaking of enjoyment from mitzvot, we have the deal. Yaakov made a deal with Lavan. Lavan said, "Work for me for 7 years, and you'll get to marry this daughter of mine that you love so much, Rahel." So it says in 29:20, Chaf Tet Chaf, V'yavod Yaakov b'Rachel sheva shanim. Yaakov worked for Rachel for 7 years. This is before he knew that this is actually for Leah. Be'einav, in his eyes, kayamim achadim. They were like a single day. They were like a few days. Be'avata ota. Because of how much he loved her, it seemed like a very short time. Now, the Malbim asks a question. This is a fundamental Malbim in understanding what love means in in Judaism, certainly in Tanakh. The Malbim asks the question, and you're probably wondering the same thing too, I hope. When you really, really want something, when you're watching the clock for something to happen, does time slow down or does time speed up? In other words, does it feel like it's like the clock all of a sudden lost its battery power and it's like tick, tick, tick? Or when you really want something to happen, does the clock feel like it's going like really, really fast? What's going on? Right? Feels like it's. What do you mean? It depends what it is. All right, Malbim. It's something you want. Something you want to have. It feels like it's slow, usually, right? Usually, if you're thinking like most people, not like the Malbim, not like you, right? So when you want something to happen, time goes slow. When you want something to speed up, that's when time goes. Or when you don't want something to happen, that's when time goes fast.
You're in a football game or a basketball game.
Right, your team's ahead. It seems like the clock is like stopped. Right, and it's the same clock, right? It's an amazing thing. It's very subjective. So actually, that's going to be part of the answer. And the Malbim wants to know why it seemed to him that time was going so fast. When usually, if you really want something, here he is. He wants to marry Rahel. Time's supposed to be going really slow for him for these 7 years. But no, it felt like it was going fast. What's going on? So says the Malbim a couple of things. Yaakov lo hevin aramad Lavan ve'avar barachel davka b'sheva shanim meleim tachat b'shelavan amar she'ein tzarich la'avod oto ba'avur zeh haya etel Yaakov behefef, etc. That's not the point. Sure. Here's the point. Sheberov ahavata oto haya be'inav kamim achadim. Because of how much he loved her, the time seemed to go fast. Shechashav, so he's going to give two answers. The first answer is Shechashav bedato shavodat sheva shanim mehem rak yamim achadim. Lefi erech yikarat Rachel sheshava harbe yoter mizeh. It was so worth it for him. He thought 7 years for Rachel? This girl is worth 1,000 years of work. Not 7 years of work. I'd work 1,000 years for her. I would walk 500 miles for her. Now, whatever, this working for her for 7 years is nothing. That's one answer. She's so amazing. She's so great. This is the perfect girl. 7 years is nothing. That's one answer. Good answer. And by the way, what this answer indicates is what you were saying. And that is that sometimes time is relative. Sometimes all of our emotions are relative. They're subjective, right? And you can use this for yourself. You can use this. You can psych yourself up for time to go faster by enjoying what you're doing. Now, I had this experience. Maybe some of you have had a similar experience. I had this experience many, many, many years ago when I first started coming to shul. And it seemed to me that shul was dragging on, and shul is very difficult. And shul lasts from, shul used to last from 8:45 to like 11:30, 11:45. It's a 3-hour experience. It's, this is that, and the kiddush is, you have to wait so long, right? You get so hungry. So whatever it is. So, I don't know about you, but for me, shul could have been a very difficult experience. So what did I do? I taught myself to enjoy it. I said, I'm here. I'm quote unquote stuck here. I might as well make the most of my time. So how am I going to do that? So when you have a moment or two, look into a book and learn something. When you have a moment or two, sing along, try to learn the tunes and enjoy them. Try to learn the meaning of what you're saying, and, like feel what you're saying, perhaps. I don't know, crazy idea, right? So all of these are things that can make your time go by faster. And when 11:45 rolls around, or nowadays it's closer to 10:30, whatever it is, when the time for the end of davening comes around, you're like, oh, that That was fast. It feels like it feels like it's 8:47 and davening just started and you're already done. So that's a way that we can use this lesson from the Malbim of that we learned from Yaakov Avinu. So that's one answer. He loved her so much that 7 years felt like nothing. In other words, it didn't feel like they were worth. They didn't feel like they're as much as he could have worked for her. Right? 7 years is nothing.
Shouldn't we look at it though as 7 years was a great sacrifice? I mean, we don't want to think that it's nothing.
Well, for him, it was not, because she was so worth it. She was worth much more than 7 years sacrifice. Right. Good question. All right. So there's a second answer. Second answer is Gam Yomar Shavatu at Rachel Lo Haya Avod Hacheshek. It wasn't, and the second answer is very important, very deep. He didn't love Rachel because of her looks. He didn't love Rachel because they look like a nice couple together. He didn't like Rachel because he liked how she decorated or dressed or whatever. He didn't love Rachel for physical reasons. He loved Rachel for spiritual reasons. He didn't love Rachel for just because of some sort of cheshek, because of some sort of passion for her, as we'd like to imagine. He kissed her when he met her as a love at first sight or something like that, right? It's all very gallant and it's a love story in the Bible. No, that's not how we understand the story. It was not out of cheshek. It wasn't out of a passion that he loved her. And if it were out of passion, then we would have that problem. We would have the problem of the clock going by really, really slowly because he's just eager to marry her. He wants it to happen sooner, right? He can't wait to marry her, right? But that's not what it was. And to prove that it's not what it was, the Torah uses this language that for him, it felt like a short time, meaning it wasn't a love of passion. It was a love of emotion, a love of not selfishness, not what can I get from her, but how am I going to be able to grow with her? What kind of spirituality? What kind of home? What kind of household? What kind of community can I build with this woman? So it was a very different kind of love, and so that's why the Torah has a very different kind of description of how he loved her. Okay.
How did he find out how spiritual she was until he was with her for a long time?
He recognized her spirituality, the spirituality in her from the get-go. I guess he saw in her midot what kind of a woman she was. Obviously, he was also an older, wiser person. He wasn't like a 13-year-old, yeshiva bacher, just like looking for someone to marry. He was already, middle-aged, and at least, and he knew what he was looking for. We'll probably discuss more about that when we get to the topic of marriage. We'll get to that in the life cycles class, which is actually coming up in a few weeks, probably. So now that we're done with childbirth, which takes a long time, as you can imagine, at least 9 months. Anyway, usually. All right. So next topic. So he marries Leah accidentally, or for him, it's an accident. For Lavan, it was not an accident at all. It was quite planned out. Anyway, he marries Leah. He marries Rachel. He marries their maidservants, and I wanted to say a word or two on the names that were chosen for the Shvatim. Now, obviously, you could probably have a class for each Shevet individually. Why is Yisachar, or is it Yisachar? As it's the first time you say it, you're supposed to pronounce it like that in this week's parsha. And why is Yosef? Rashi goes into some of them, sometimes not. The Torah gives us reasons for their names. Right now, I'd like to say a word or two about Reuven. Okay. One of the sponsors of today's class. So let's let's talk about that name. V'tahar Leah, and it's the firstborn. So maybe next year we'll talk about the next one. We'll see. V'tahar Leah, Leah conceived. She had a son. Ben V'tikra Shemo, and she named him Reuven. Why Reuven? Ki amra ki ra'a H-Shem ba'aniyi. So Reuven has the shoresh of ra'a in it, resh aleph, which is to see. H-Shem saw my suffering, and so Reuven has some indication of seeing something, right? Ki ata, and now Yahavani ishi, and now also my husband will love me. So says Rav Munk, Rav Eli Munk in Call of the Torah. That's interesting. I didn't write the source here, but it's okay. I'll tell you the source. It's Rav Munk in Call of the Torah. So he called his name Reuven. So let me just read you what he says. The name is Leah, gave to her children, expressed the purity of her intentions. Very important. It's not like she was just naming them just because, we're looking for funny names, right? They bring out the happiness with which she felt at being the wife of the patriarch. At the same time, they reflect the immense gratitude of a fulfilled mother toward Providence. Blessing her in this way, Providence and H-Shem did justice to her with respect to her husband and permitted her to win his affection. Hence, she calls her first son Reuven, for H-Shem has discerned my humiliation, as reference to Bayar H-Shem in the previous verse. For now my husband will love me. Rashi, however, this is why Rav Munk is great, because he brings everybody. He's just quoting left and right. So he starts with Rashi. Rashi, however, cites the explanation of Rabbi Lazar in the Gemara in Brachot 7b. By the way, that Gemara in 7b is the source of the idea that we said before in our life cycles class, that names mean something. That's the Gemara right there in Brachot 7b. Leah said, "See, Re'u, the difference between my son Ben, Reuven, see my son and the son of my father-in-law," right? In other words, the father-in-law being Esav. The latter sold his birthright to Yaakov, but my son will not sell his to Yosef. Nor she basically predicted that there would be other children, and Yosef would be the firstborn from Rahel. Nor will he protest the preference for Yosef. Not only that, he will even want to rescue Yosef from the pit, as Reuven did. So not only is Reuven somebody who's a firstborn, and finally a firstborn who is worthy of the name, right? Not Yishmael, who is the firstborn of Abraham, not Esau, who's the firstborn of Yitzchak, but Reuven, who is the firstborn of Yaakov, actually acts like a firstborn. And even when the cards are on the table, and even when push comes to shove, and he has the opportunity to either get rid of a potential rival or something, he doesn't. He wants to save Yosef from the pit. So some have wondered what could have prompted Rabbi Lazar to look for a different interpretation from that given explicitly in the Torah itself. Right? The Torah itself gives us a reason. H-Shem saw my humiliation. Ru'u. So why is Rabbi Lazar in the Gemara giving a completely different reason about look at my son, basically? So it has been thought that Leah's expression Ru'u hints at a deeper meaning, since the singular form Ra'ah with a hey at the end would have been sufficient, but Ru'u with a vav at the end makes it plural. So you all should see this, right? So it hints at a deeper meaning, since okay. Also, the syllable ben at the end seems superfluous in the light of the reason for the name as given in the Torah. If the Torah wanted her to name her son with the shorish of Re'eh, so his name could have been Re'eh. Hey, Ray, right? That could have been his name. But she didn't name him Re'eh. She named him Reuven. So what is going on here? Why is she calling him Ru? So the answer is, it would seem that a more appropriate name for Leah's son would have been Re'eh, Ani, Oni, says the Maharsha. The Gaon of Vilna holds that the verse itself implies still another reason, which is not expressed. For in all the following names, I'm sorry that this text is sideways here. Let me see if I can make this smaller so I can read it now, but I can't. Oh, great. Okay, this is going to look funny on video. The reason for the name precedes the name itself, whereas here the name is a given a priori. This implies then that this name is not derived solely from the meaning mentioned from that mentioned explicitly in the verse. In other words, because the other names of the Shvatim, says the Vilna Gaon, because the names of the other Shvatim are given in the Torah and then still have a deeper meaning nevertheless. So here also, Amen. Yes, I know. Write it down. Okay. So also here we have the situation where Reuven must mean something more than just see. So be that as it may, Rav Elazar's explanation refers to certain events which had not yet come to pass at the time of the name was given. Obviously, right? Accordingly, it is held that Leah gave this name to the child through prophetic inspiration, Ruach HaKodesh, but was not completely aware of its true import. Right. So in other words, she didn't really know the entire story. She didn't know Yosef would be the name of the son of Rahel. She didn't know that Yosef would be thrown into a pit. She didn't know all these details, but that's not how Ruach HaKodesh works. You have a little bit of a glint of an inspiration of what will happen, and that's what she based it on. This is based on the commentaries on the Gemara there in Brachot. The name as it is then expresses a twofold sentiment: gratitude to H-Shem and profound joy at having been spared the dreaded union with Esav. Right? There's other commentaries that say, and Rav Munk brings elsewhere that indeed she was concerned that that Esav would marry her. And she was kind of planned to she's the oldest child, and she, in theory, should have been married off to Esav, who was the oldest child too. But because she wasn't, she was grateful to H-Shem for sparing her this terrible fate of having to be the wife of an Esav. All right, so that's part of the reason why she called him Reuven. Let's go on. We've got 10 minutes. And 2 more verses. I think we can do this. We got this. Right? And then there might even be time for questions. All right. We're going to go quite a bit ahead. Reuven is not just born. We just had him being born. And now we're fast forwarding to the point where he's old enough to be walking around picking up important plants. What do I mean? The verse says in verse 30, chapter 30, verse 14. That's Lamed Yud Daled. Vayelech Reuven b'mei. This is the beginning of, I think, the 4th Aliyah. Vayelech Reuven b'mei Katsir Chitim. He was walking around in the days of the wheat harvest. V'yimtza duda'im, and he found, by the way, to be matzah something, to find something. It means it's not a random occurrence. You're kind of finding something you're looking for. He found duda'im in the field. Safaria translates duda'im as mandrakes. It's a semi-mythological plant. It does exist. There is a plant called mandrake, and the bulb of it sort of looks like a person. In mythology, in many cultures, including midrashic, there's talk of the mandrake has in it properties of a person, human qualities. So we'll see about that. So anyway, he finds these duda'im b'sadeh. He finds them in the field. He brings them to his mother Leah. By the way, Leah at this point has stopped already having more children. But Toma Rachel Leah, and Rachel says to Leah, Tanina alim duda'e benech. Give me some of your sons duda'im, these plants. And so Leah becomes upset with Rachel. You already took my husband. There's a question why she could say that. She actually took Rachel's husband. All right, so that's maybe that's for a future year, but a future class. But meanwhile, she says, okay, you know what? You're kind of right. Let's make a deal. I'll have Rachel says, I'll have Yaakov be with you tonight. That's where he's going to stay. And apparently, says Rav Hirsch, apparently she had the domestic control of where he would put his bed. All right. Anyway, not going to get into all that. That's a whole big mess. That's a whole can of worms. Not for now. Let's talk about these mandrakes. What are they? So it says Rav Moshe Sternbach in Tam V'dat. Ayin B'Sforno. First he quotes the Sforno. Sforno says that the duda'im are a type of plant, a grass, an asav, and it has a reach tov. It has a good smell, and this helps moil lehulda, like huledet, birth. It helps with birthing. It helps with conceiving, right? And there's, in other words, it's. By the way, Sforno was a doctor. A lot of people don't know this. He was a medical doctor. So sometimes his interpretation of things has to do with his medical knowledge. So medically speaking, and by the way, this is a well-known fact by now, for conception to work, especially for people who are struggling to conceive. Can ask Dr. Brody about this if you get a chance. So there are all kinds of meditation and relaxation exercises that are recommended for people who are trying to conceive, because that helps, right? Sometimes some stress levels discourage conception. So for that reason, perhaps this might help. That's why the duda'im help with conception. That's why Leah, who by the way has these duda'im, and why it conceives after Yaakov is with her. Perhaps it's because of the pleasant smell. So that's Sforno. And then he quotes the Gemara in Sanhedrin, in 99, which is 99b, which is where the Gemara in Sanhedrin gets weird. Has all kinds of, that's what it starts talking about Mashiach and Tchias HaMesim, and talks about all kinds of very difficult to understand concepts. So there in Sanhedrin 99b, it says the duda'im are a plant called Yavruchim, which, by the way, Yavruchim has a pleasant smell. So it's not arguing in the Sforno there. And proves this from a pasuk in Shir Hashirim, because it says in Shir Hashirim, Hadudayim nitnu reach. Dudayim give off a nice smell. The Rambam Maimonides is very confused about this. Shalom matzah b'sefer harufuot haminzeh. He mentions that in his time, he was also a doctor. He never found in his book of medicine this duda'im, what's it called, yavruchim. So it doesn't mention these plants, yavruchim or duda'im. It doesn't mention them as with any healing properties, and that it helps with conception. V'laihu rak l'segula, and he concludes. The Rambam. This is So the Rambam concludes that maybe this is just a segula. It's just an auspicious omen to have these plants. It doesn't really do anything medically. It's all basically psychological or maybe psychosomatic for us. All right, perhaps. All right. And so, and by the way, Rav Sternbach mentions Venira, perhaps you can say the isha tzricha liyot regua venucha balayla. Maybe she needs to relax for conception reasons, and maybe this helps with that. This reach tov, right? I remember not so long ago I had my first medical procedure, a very minor thing, but whatever. Anyway, so the nurses asked me if they should light incense for me, if that would relax me. I was pretty relaxed to begin with. Anyway, I was already cracking jokes. Anyway, but I told them no, that actually probably heightened my my blood pressure, because I hate the smell of incense. So, like, I don't want that at all. I like when we go to a store that has incense or perfumes, I have to like run through the section because I can't stand it. So anyway, then he quotes, and Rav Sternbach quotes Ayin B'Zohar HaKodesh. So maybe the Zohar HaKodesh says Sheduda'im Reicham Nudaf Umerachuk. So he says that the duda'im has a very strong smell. Not that they have a nice smell; they have a strong smell. You can smell them from miles away. And like if you what's that place in California, the garlic capital, forgetting, sorry, Gilroy. Thank you, Gilroy. Yes, I mentioned it before. I love driving past Gilroy because besides going to a friend's house, the smell in Gilroy smells like garlic from miles away. You can be on the freeway, you can be on the 5, right? Roll down your window, or the 101, is it the 101 or 5? I forget what it is over there. Roll down your window, you'll smell garlic. It's amazing. You drive through Salinas, you'll smell lettuce. It's guaranteed. You can't help it. So some things have a very, very, there it's because there's a lot of lettuce. So but garlic has a strong smell. Duda'im have, he says, a strong smell, says the Gemara, says the Zohar. And so and the point was for Yaakov to conceive through Leah to conceive through Yaakov, and that way to spread the Torah, right? It would be that's the point of the duda'im. There's a holy purpose to it, that it can actually spread. It can help spread Torah. That was the point of Yaakov's life. Chizkuni, by the way, he quotes the Chizkuni. Is going to throw a monkey wrench into the works here. The Chizkuni says the duda'im are te'enim. What are te'enim? Dates, and dates don't have a pleasant smell, and dates don't have a long-reaching smell either. I mean, you could smell a date tree when you're next to it, but but it's not. This basically contradicts both the Zohar and the Sforno and the Rambam, and well, maybe not the Rambam so much, but so this Chizkuni is worth looking into, why he says that they are dates, etc. All right, we don't have a lot of time. We have about a minute, but real quick, I think we can talk about this very quickly. The chapter, very, very end of the parsha, Lamed Bet, Aleph and Bet. So 32, 1 and 2. So this is after the deal that Lavan makes with Yaakov. V'yashkem Lavan baboker. Yaakov, Lavan got up in the morning. V'yinashek levanav v'notav. He kissed his sons and daughters, meaning he kissed his grandchildren. All right. V'yivarech et hem. He blessed them. V'yelech v'yashav Lavan limkomo. He went and he settled back in his place. V'Yaakov halach ledarko. And Yaakov walked on his path. Vivkavo malach Elohim, and he saw the angels of Hashem, and he names the place where he saw the angels of Hashem, Machanaim, etc. All right, so the Meshech Chochma wants to know, and we want to know, why does it describe their leaving from the same place very, very differently? Again, Lavan left on his journey homeward. He went back home, but it says about Yaakov halach ledarko. He went on his way. Why doesn't it say by Lavan the same, halach ledarko lebaita, or whatever? Or why does it, or why doesn't it say by Yaakov that Yaakov went limkomo, to his place? So what is the simple answer before the Meshech Chochma gets involved here? The simple answer is Yaakov is not going to his place. Yaakov doesn't really know where he's going. He's going to go to his father's home, or he's going to try to. We find out next week's parsha that Vayishlach, right, we're going to find out that actually Esau was going to go out to meet him, to kill him. It turns out Lavan sent, whatever. We're not going to get into all that. That's probably for next week. But he didn't know where he was going exactly. He knew where he wanted to go, but he didn't know where he was going exactly. But that's not what the Meshech Chochmah says. Meshech Chochmah says very beautiful. Lavan is a rasha. Lavan is an evil person. Lava limkomo v'Yaakov halach ledarko pirush kimishi yeshlo ish kadosh k'Yaakov betoch beito halo rui l'hishtamish b'masav v'chachmato l'kayim bo holech et chachamim. Lavan had a Yaakov living in his home for years and years. Shouldn't he have been inspired? Shouldn't he have changed somehow? No, he wasn't. Lavan remained a Lavan. Lavan, when he left Yaakov, went back to his place. He went back to the way he was before Yaakov, as if Yaakov wasn't ever there. Because some people, if they're so evil and they want to stay evil, they're never inspired. They never change. Some people want to never change and they don't. You can live in the house of Rav Moshe Feinstein. You could be his next door neighbor, and if he wants to, not be influenced by that. And other people, like Yaakov, would yearn to live next door to Moshe Feinstein. Would do anything to do that. Want to be inspired, want to grow. And so that's what it means. Halach ledarko. He went on his way. His way there wasn't a set direction. There wasn't a set destination. We live our lives hoping, wishing that we can somehow gain something and grow somehow. And that's what Yaakov was doing. He was growing. He was going on his way, making the best of his life, living his best life, as we've been saying. And Lavan was the opposite. Lavan remained as evil as he was in the beginning, even before he even met Yaakov. And we need to avoid that. How do we avoid that? Through all the lessons we learned in this week's Parsha, with what the Malbim said about focusing on spirituality, what the Kli Yakar says about focusing on spirituality. Focus on how we can live our lives as purely as possible. And with that, we'll be able to spread Torah like the Zohar says, and we'll grow, and God willing, we'll become the people that we are supposed to be. All right, Yeshkov to all of you. Thank you. If there's any questions, I'm stopping.